Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
The United States Justice Department claims that Liberty Counsel's ObamaCare case, Liberty University v. Geithner, is now moot. It is not, and we're going to discuss that today on Faith and Freedom. I'm Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action. Joining me again in studio is Steve Crampton, Liberty Counsel's Vice President and General Counsel. Steve, in an apparent attempt, as you know, to prevent pending litigation against Obamacare from reaching the United States Supreme Court in advance of the 2014 elections, President Obama has once again acted in a unilateral and arbitrary and in a capricious way in just deciding willy-nilly that the law that was passed, Obamacare, by an overwhelmingly, a completely partisan vote in the dead of night, Christmas Eve of 2009, he's now saying that he can just kind of implement it piecemeal whenever he wants to. A,
Yes.
Is that the case? And B, what about the Justice Department's argument that this move has now rendered moot Liberty Counsel's case against Obamacare?
It's really a mess, isn't it? I think what you have is even the White House now recognizing what a train wreck implementing Obamacare, pay no attention to the actual provisions of it, really is. You've got states that have refused to play along with creation of the exchanges. You've got administrative fumbling along the way. They don't know who's on first. They're still fashioning and refashioning rules regarding exemptions for religious organizations, for the abortion mandate that were fashioned by the Department of Health and Human Services. It's all over the map. And then you've got a president who more and more is starting to resemble more a king, or shall we say a tyrant, than a democratically elected president on a limited term of office. And so I think there's a real legal issue here, whether the president can arbitrarily now decree that certain portions, and by the way, it's only the reporting requirement, if that's not confusing enough for you, for the employers that he says he's not going to implement yet, whether he can do that in the face of unequivocal language in the statute itself, passed constitutionally by the people's representatives in Congress, that says it must be implemented by 2014. And so you still have parts of the law that must be implemented by 2014, but now the president is saying parts we're not going to enforce until 2015. What a mess.
Yeah, this president, he's looking less and less like the elected executive of a constitutional republic and more like the self-appointed dictator or king in a banana republic.
I missed the anointing somewhere, but apparently it's happened.
I mean, this is uncanny. Now, let me be very clear here. This employer mandate, as well as the rest of Obamacare, is, as you pointed out, and Democrats are calling it this, it's a train wreck.
It's a train wreck.
It is absolutely unsustainable.
It's embarrassing.
Absolutely will destroy our economy. It's a complete and utter embarrassment to the liberals that passed it, to President Obama. It's his signature piece of legislation.
Yes, it is.
It's an utter failure. Hence, his presidency is an utter failure. They recognize all that, and they recognize that people are starting to recognize that going into the 2014 election.
Bingo.
This is an attempt to insulate and protect Democrats going forward in the midterm 2014 elections, is it not?
I think that's really what it is. And a lot of commentators, even mainstream media, has recognized that this is a political ploy. But at the same time, here we sit with the only lawsuit in the country that challenges the entirety of the employer mandate. We've already argued the case a couple months ago, and theoretically the Fourth Circuit is working on an opinion answering the arguments that were presented at argument. And now the president kind of pulls this fast one, and so immediately the Department of Justice runs into court and says, you don't have to decide this at all, just pay no mind to what's going on with the employer mandate. But the truth of the matter is, all the provisions of Obamacare are integrally related to one another. The employer mandate plays into the individual mandate because, after all, employers employ individuals. The individual mandate remains in effect. There's no question about that. It's going to harm people, and even folks that are proponents of the act are going to be shocked at the price tag that accompanies their requirements for complying with the law. And so it's only one part of the employer mandate that's affected here, and there's a real issue. And as we've argued already in response to the Department of Justice's submission, it does not moot our challenge. The employer mandate remains, even if it's implemented in its entirety a year later. It's coming. It's just a matter of when it will arrive.
Now, Steve, on Obamacare itself, you talk about the price tag to employers. Certainly, we know that there are incredible penalties associated with
Exactly.
noncompliance, with failure to provide government-mandated insurance policies for every individual employee, fines of in the thousands of dollars when you have an organization like Liberty University with thousands of employees.
That's right.
We're quickly racking up penalties in the multi-millions, the tens of millions of dollars in very short order. How can that not, that kind of tax, which is what it has now been so-called, how can that in any way be considered constitutional?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think in any rational analysis, an objective review of the law and the way it plays out, really punishing to the extent of, I think, shutting down an employer who even overlooks, by accident, fails to comply with some of the minute requirements and onerous requirements of this law, could find themselves absolutely bankrupt in very short order. I mean, one of the fines, just one, increases to a level of $15,000 per employee per day. And so, as you say, you roll that into an institution that employs thousands of folks.
Tens of millions, hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions. Nobody's got that kind of money. Even Microsoft would be shut down in short order under those kind of penalties. And it is at least unclear whether those penalty provisions would be suspended during President Obama's arbitrary suspension of the reporting requirements. So you're just in a total gray area, and again, it's a disaster that's not waiting to happen. It's happening right now.
If the Obama administration was confident in their case, you would think they would want this thing to play out, maybe even before the elections. Get it ruled concretely and affirmatively ruled that this thing is constitutional all the way. But we saw something very interesting, not unprecedented, but very rare, when the Supreme Court granted Liberty Counsel's appeal for a rehearing at the Fourth Circuit.
That's right.
That is, am I exaggerating by saying that's extremely rare?
It is an extraordinary relief. Yeah.
So that happens, and so that means ultimately that it will go back up to the Supreme Court. They'll take a second look at Liberty Counsel or Liberty University v. Geithner. Does the federal government recognize this? And it seems to me that they're showing their hand here a little bit, that they don't want this thing going before the Supreme Court.
And frankly, Matt, in my almost 30 years of practicing law, I don't think I've ever seen, and these are lawyers at the highest level from the Department of Justice, I don't know that I've ever seen somebody defending a law the way they've defended this one. When we first filed it, they themselves admitted that the Anti-Injunction Act did not apply. Then the Fourth Circuit said it did. And so at the Supreme Court, the Department of Justice said, well, maybe it does. Now they come back down and they had argued, of course, it wasn't a tax. And President Obama himself famously said it wasn't a tax. Then the Supreme Court says it is a tax. And now they say, oh, yes, of course it's a tax. And now they're doing the same kind of shell game here, desperately grasping at straws to keep the inevitable from happening. Whether it's today or in 6 months or a year, the Fourth Circuit is going to hear and rule on this case, and it's going to be back before the U.S. Supreme Court. The High Court did not even address the employer mandate in its first go-round, and what they did address is really only a very small, bite-sized piece of this entire monstrosity. And a monstrosity is what it is. But in the meantime, of course, employers are taking steps to implement. Insurance companies are revamping the entirety of their structure of offered benefits and so forth because they can't afford not to. They can't be caught at the last minute having done nothing to take steps to implement. So, in a sense, the Obama administration is already having its way. These things are going into effect, and the longer we wait to decide the ultimate constitutionality, the worse off we're going to be if we have to undo everything at the end of the day.
Well, folks, we will continue to report on the status of this case in future broadcasts of Faith and Freedom. In the meantime, Liberty Counsel is here and able to defend your freedoms and your rights and able to work toward getting rid of this Obamacare monstrosity through your generosity, through your gifts, and through your help. Go to lc.org to become part of our efforts to get Obamacare struck down once and for all. Give us a call, 1-800-671-1776, or again, lc.org.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.